Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is an English fairy tale meant to be traditional. We shall see when I read it because the title I have never heard. It's called Childe Rowland and it's spelled C-H-I-L-D-E. Child. Interesting. Childe Rowland and his brothers twin were playing at the ball. And there was their sister bird Ellen in the midst among them all. Childe Rowland kicked it with his foot and caught it with his knee. At last, as he plunged among them all, o'er the church bells made it flee. Bird Ellen round about the aisle to seek the ball is gone. But long they waited, and longer they still waited, and she came not back again. They sought her east, they sought her west, they sought her up and down, and woe were the hearts of those brethren, for she was not to be found. So what this rhyme is saying is that Rowland was playing with his brothers and they were playing football, though it says ball. He's kicked it, and when he's finally made the kick, it's gone round the back of the church. So his sister has gone to seek the ball, but she never actually came back. That's what the rhyme reads, but I knew the wording was different because it's Old English. That's why I explained it. So, at last, when she did not return, her eldest brother went to the warlock Merlin and asked him if he knew where bird Ellen was. The fair bird Ellen, said the warlock Merlin, must have been carried off by the fairies, because she went round the church with her shins, the opposite way to the sun. She is now in the dark tower of the king of Elfland. It would take the boldest knight in all Christendom to bring her back. Now, they did used to call it Christendom as well. This one is actually Christendom. If it is possible, said her brother, I'll do it, or perish in the attempt. Possible it is, said the warlock Merlin, but woe to he who attempts it, if he is not well taught beforehand what he is to do. The eldest brother of bird Ellen was not to be put off, so he begged the warlock Merlin to tell him what it was he needed to know. And what was it he needed to do, so then he could set out for Elfland? But long they waited, and longer still, with doubt and muckle pain. But woe were the hearts of his brethren, for he came not back again. Then the second brother got tired and sick of waiting, and he went to the warlock Merlin, and asked him the same as his brother. So he set out to find bird Ellen. But long they waited, and longer still, with muckle doubt and pain. And woe were his mother's and brother's heart, for he came not back again. And when they had waited and waited a good long time, Childe Rowland, the youngest of the bird Ellen's brothers, wished to go, and begged his mother, the good queen, to let him go. She gave him his father's sword, that never struck in vain, and said the spell that would give it victory. So Childe Rowland said goodbye and went to the cave of the warlock Merlin. Once more he said to the warlock, "Tell me how I may rescue Bird Ellen and her brothers twain." "Well, my son," said Warlock Merlin, "there are but two things. Simple they may seem, but hard they are to do. One thing to do, and one thing not to do. And the thing to do is this. After you have entered the land of Fairy, whoever speaks to you till you meet the Bird Ellen, you must out with your father's sword and off with their head. And what you not to do is be this. Bite no bit, drink no drop. However hungry or thirsty you be, drink a drop or bite a bite. Well, in Elfland you be, and never will you see Middle Earth again." So Childe Rowland thanked the warlock Merlin and went on his way. He went along and along, and still further along, till he came to the horse herd of the king of Elfland feeding his horses. These he knew by their fairy eyes, for their fairy eyes were quite fiery, and knew that he was at last in the land of the fairy. "Canst thou tell me," said Childe Rowland to the horse herd, "where the king of Elfland's dark tower is in this land?" I cannot tell thee," said the horse herd, "but go on a little further and thou wilt come to the cowherd, and he, maybe, can tell thee." Then without a word more, Childe Rowland drew the good sword that never struck in vain, and off went the horse herd's head. Childe Rowland went on further, till he came to the cowherd and asked him the same question. "I can't tell thee," said he, "but go on a little further, and thou wilt come to the hen wife, and she's sure to know." Then Childe Rowland out with his good sword that never struck in vain, and off went the cowherd's head. And he went on a little further, till he came to an old woman in a grey cloak, and he asked her if she knew where the dark tower of the king of Elfland was. "Go a little further," said the hen wife, "till you come to a round green hill, surrounded with terrace rings. From the bottom to top, go round it 3 times widdershins, and each time say, 'Open, open, open, door, and let me come in.' And the 3rd time the door will open, and you may go in." Childe Rowland was just going on when he remembered what he had to do. So he out with the good sword that never struck in vain, and off went the henwife's head. Then he went on and on and on, till he came to the round green hill with terrace rings from top to bottom. And he went round it 3 times widdershins, saying each time, "Open door, and let me come in." And the 3rd time the door did open, and in he did go. As soon as he was in, it closed with a click. Childe Rowland was left in a kind of twilight, though there were neither windows nor candles, and he could not make out where the twilight came from. The walls and roof were made of transparent rock, encrusted with bright stones. Childe Rowland went through a very long passage seemed to go on forever. But at last he came to two wide and high folding doors which stood ajar. When he opened them, there he saw a glorious, large and spacious hall. The roof was supported by fine pillars, so large and lofty that the pillars of the cathedral were nothing compared to them. They were all of gold and silver, with wreaths of flowers composed of precious stones. Ornamented arches met in the middle of the roof, where hung by a golden chain an immense lamp made out of one big pearl. The hall was furnished in a manner equally grand, and at one end of it was a glorious couch of velvet, silk and gold, and there sat Bird Ellen, combing her golden hair with a silver comb. And when she saw Childe Rowland, she stood up and did say, "God pity ye, poor luckless fool, what have ye here to do? Hear ye this, my youngest brother, why didn't ye bide at home? Had you 100,000 lives, ye couldn't spare any a one. But sit ye down, but woe, oh woe, that ever ye were born, for come the king of Elfland in, your fortune is forlorn." Then they sat down together, and Childe Rowland told her all that he had done, and she told him how their two brothers had reached the Dark Tower. But unfortunately, though they did reach it, they had been enchanted by the king of Elfland, and they lay there entombed as if dead. And then, after they had talked a little longer, Childe Rowland began to feel hungry from his long travels and asked his sister for some food. Bird Ellen looked at Childe Rowland sadly, but she was under a spell and could not warn him. So she brought a golden basin full of bread and milk. Childe Rowland was just about to raise it to his lips, but then remembered Merlin's warning. So he dashed the bowl to the ground and said, "Not a sup will I swallow, not a bit will I bite, till Bird Ellen is set free." At that moment they heard the noise of someone approaching, and a loud voice was heard saying, "Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of a Christian man. Be he dead, be he living, with my brand I'll dash his brains from his brain pan." And then the folding doors of the hall were burst open, and the king of Elfland rushed in. "Strike then, if thou darest," shouted out Childe Rowland, and rushed to meet him with the good sword that never yet did fail. They fought and they fought, till Childe Rowland beat the king of Elfland, and down on his knees he went, and he caused the king to yield to him. "I grant thee mercy," said Childe Rowland. "Release my sister from thy spells, raise my brothers to life, and let us all go free, and thou shalt be spared." "I agree," said the Elfin king, and rising up he did, and went immediately to a chest, which he took a vial filled with blood and liquor. With this he anointed the ears, eyelids, nostrils, lips, and fingertips of the two brothers, and they sprang at once into life, and declared their souls had been away, but had now returned. The Elfin king then said some words to Bird Ellen, and she was disenchanted, and they all passed out of the hall together through the long passage, and turned their back on the Dark Tower, never ever to return again. They reached home, and the good queen, their mother, and Bird Ellen never went round the church widdershins ever, ever again. The end. Wow, well, that was very interesting. The story of the fairyland is true, but leaving it's not so easy because once you get there, it's said you're meant to have to stay there for 7 years, unless granted special permission to come back. Under special circumstances, that is. Otherwise, you have to stay there 7 years. And even if you were to come back after 7 years, apparently what's said is, and this is just myth, it's not, there's no truth that can be shown for this, it's just myth. But apparently, even if you return after 7 years, that much time has passed on Earth that once you actually touch the ground, you would just evaporate into dust because she would have been dead a long time and many things would have changed. So yeah, probably best not to go there unless you plan on staying there forever, and you're not to eat nor drink if you wish to return to this realm as well. That's also very true. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening. I truly appreciate it. Please hit the like, share if you can, and if you've not yet subscribed, please consider doing so because it does help. And if you're on my podcast listening, why not give it a review? A kind review I'd definitely prefer that, yes, I have to say. But any review. Thank you so much and many blessings.